All right, what's up? How's everybody doing? We have Antonio Fletcher here, and I'd like to start responding to some of the statements that have been being made since last night. Before I do, though, um, I want to point something out that was actually brought to my attention that um, I've actually made a mistake, and what that mistake is saying that if the chromosome 2 fusion happen, if the chromosome 2 fusion happened or it didn't happen, this wouldn't really have any effect on whether or not evolution wouldn't be true. If chromosome 2 fusion didn't happen, if we did not have any implications of there being actually 48 chromosomes in humans or that one of them had fused, then that would mean that we didn't share a common ancestor. So that would have a huge impact on the supposed evolution of humans. So I think that what the mistake is that I've made is actually giving way too much leeway to the evolutionists. The fact that there is no fusion site there indicates that man and chimpanzees, we did not share a common ancestor, that there's not any evidence for the evolution of, ape to man, the slow progression of ape to man. Now, when I say that statement, some are going to say, well, man are apes, but I think you guys get what I'm saying. There's no evidence of progression of the divergence of man coming from any common ancestor that was an ape. And that is 100% fact. There is no indication that we are, that the supposed chromosome 2 fusion site is actually a fusion site. Now, I want people to keep this in mind. This information isn't coming from just me. Dr. Jeffrey Tompkins, he's a geneticist who deals with these types of issues. He's published articles on this particular issue, and he's the one who knows exactly what he's talking about. So if you don't want to take my word for it, I think you guys should take at least his word for it. That being said, I've been listening to some statements that have been being made by Steve starting another hangout today. And just some of the things that they've been saying about Tommy Hall. And Tommy's not here to defend himself, so I figured that I'd defend him a little bit. Tommy said repeatedly, you know what, he doesn't know a lot about these topics. That doesn't mean that Tommy's an idiot and he doesn't understand the science. I've sat back and listened to Tommy correct Steve and these other individuals in their hangouts many, many different times. Just because Tommy doesn't say that he's like an expert on some field, he's being humble about it and honest about it, that doesn't mean that he's an idiot. When he sees your inconsistencies and you try to act like you know what you're talking about, he can rightfully point out that you guys don't know what you're talking about. For example, Dragnock, there's some little drama that's been going on with Dragnock and Tommy recently. Drag, it's true that you have never ever made a point, as far as I'm aware, I've never seen you make a good point for evolution or against intelligent design or creationism. You attack people's personalities and you give all these strange psychoanalysis that seems to be really just projections. And it's just downright rude. You're not really offering anything of any relevance to defend evolution or to make some sort of scientific point. What you more so do is you bring up off-topic remarks that are really just awkward and arrogant. That's really what you do. It's like you just learned something from some of these classes that you started taking, and it is completely unnecessary for you to bring them up. So I think that the way that I've been seeing Dragnock, I watched his response to Tommy's response, and I think that Drag is just being ridiculous. I mean, some of the things that he's talking about, I mean, it's completely unnecessary. If he's telling you that he doesn't know a lot about these topics, he has no reason to get mad or defensive when you start pointing out information that he just told you that he doesn't know a lot about it. If he told you beforehand he doesn't know a lot about it, you shouldn't be trying to act like he's getting mad at you for saying that he doesn't, you saying that he doesn't understand it, right? Because he's telling you he doesn't understand it. He doesn't know a lot about these topics. And that being said, Drag, you don't know a lot about these topics. You know, that's just the reality of it. Even when we were talking about that DNA and water nonsense, you didn't understand any of these topics either. You don't understand any of these things when it comes to molecular biology, biochemistry, or any of these topics really that we talk about, some bits and pieces maybe, but overall you don't really understand these things. So I think you should be a little bit more humble about it, like Tommy has, because I don't even remember how many times I've been in rooms with you and talked to you, and you were completely clueless as to why why you were wrong or what the points were that were being talked about, and only learned about those things afterwards when you were in rooms with, for example, Sam or somebody else who would explain it to you or give further elaboration. So there's a lot to probably cover right now. I was skimming around through Steve's last Hangouts, but before we get into all that, Antonio, what do you think about what some of the evolutionists have been saying, man? What's your approach on what you've been seeing? Because to me, I just think that I've been seeing a lot of ridiculous behavior. I'll let you get your word in before I continue.
Well, I was talking to a couple of evolutionists last night, and they were very chill dudes, very nice guys. I think they were. I like to think they were trying to steer me in the right direction. Again, um, as I increase in my knowledge on these things, it'll become more clear to which direction I'm really being steered in. But I mean, as far as I can tell, there hasn't been nothing negative towards me yet from any of them. But I mean, everybody has different experiences. You clearly have been dealing with these people longer than I have, so I mean, ain't no telling. My experiences may change.
Well, the one thing I want people to understand is that I am not an expert in any of the things that I'm talking about. A lot of the things that I'm talking about, I am self-taught on. So I want people to understand that I'm not sitting over here trying to act like I'm an authority on any of these topics. But I think that what you should do for the people that are listening is to be honest and to do your own research about it. I think that you would more so come to my end to the things that I'm talking about. Because, for example, a lot of the people that you see in Steve's Hangouts, they most of them don't really know what's being talked about. Like Steve, he's memorized a couple of words that have been said by like Fiona and some other people, but for the most part, I don't really think he gets what's actually being said, and that was demonstrated by the assertion of the Robertsonian translocation. That's not the same thing that you're seeing inside of the fusion event. It's claimed that the fusion site shows a telomere to telomere fusion. A Robertsonian translocation happens with two centromeres that are within close proximity. Two chromosomes that are within close proximity by the centromeres. So, I mean, he confuses a lot of things and he mixes things up. So that's all I'm saying. But for people that are going to be listening to me, go do your own research, but don't allow the fact that there's a lot of people that are going to be negative towards me to mislead you for the people that are listening to me, because I'm only one person. I'm only one person, and me being one person, I, of course, cannot keep up with all of the statements that are being made. But when you see a room filled with 9 people and they're all being obnoxious, you can take it to the bank that probably only 2 of them actually know what the topic is actually about, and the rest of them are just sort of nodding their head and laughing and smirking and making them negative statements just to go along with what everybody else is being said. My information is coming from people that are geneticists, that have degrees in the field, that are saying the exact same thing that I've been saying, word for word, and I think I've demonstrated that already clearly with what I've been showing. As a matter of fact, there's been some people questioning or wondering about the article that was published by Jeffrey Tompkins. I'm going to give you guys that article so that you guys can check it out. Go to the comment section. Here you guys go. He did the work. Don't attack the organization because it's a creationist organization. You need to criticize the work because there's nothing being held on that other than the genetic fallacy. I'll put it in the description as well so that you guys can check it out. But yeah, I was listening to Steve's Hangout earlier. And Steve's Hangout towards the end, I was listening to, I believe, Jade talking about, well, sharks haven't needed to evolve in millions and millions of years because they stay in the water. Which is, to me, that's a really silly statement to make, because, yeah, they can get around back and forth in the water. They can travel, but so can deer, so can bears, so can all sorts of animals that are on the land. The fact that they can travel in large distances doesn't necessarily mean anything. I think that she understands probably the problem of the fact that sharks have been around for so long, and that if you're not seeing the changes happening that you would expect to see, then that means that there's really no evolution going on with the sharks. What do you got to say about that?
I would say I I was doing quite a bit of information last night on both sides of the issue. I was reading a lot of articles from evolutionists and creationists, and I'm seeing a consistent thing said, from both sides, and that when you look at the chromosome count of human beings, like I've heard like a guy had 44 chromosomes, and there's people with Down syndrome, they tend to have 48. And what I found out was that it's not about necessarily the chromosome count, but about the information. Like, that may seem like basic stuff, and stuff that come to everybody else, but me learning all this stuff, I actually didn't know that before. That it's not so much about the chromosome count as much as it is about the information. Am I even making any sense at all?
Oh yeah, it's about the information content within the chromosomes, and there's a lot of information about. I think it's about like 6,500 sequences within inside of the chromosome around the fusion site, to where it's not found in any ape on the planet. Humans only have those distinct sequences. So yeah, I mean, it's the information content that's packed within inside of the chromosomes that actually matter. So the fact that, I mean, even if we were to say that there were two, there was a rearranging of the packaging of the chromosomes, that would have no weight to lend to the evolutionists, other than, well, okay, two chromosomes have fused. But the problem is, and it's something that I admitted from the beginning, when I was saying before that, well, even if the chromosome fusion site isn't a fusion site, that it wouldn't have any bearing on evolution, I was wrong by saying that, because if we have no evidence, this is really, really important. If all apes seem to have 48 chromosomes, you can't just remove an entire chromosome just to disappear, right? And we only have 46 chromosomes, and there's no evidence of a fusion of 48 chromosomes. That would mean that we did not evolve, that we didn't evolve. There's no evidence of the evolution of mankind in our genome. If that were to be actually true, we cannot say that we diverge from some sort of common ancestor and chimpanzees went some other direction. So what is actually being claimed to be a huge piece of evidence for evolution is actually a huge blow for common descent. So, hey, what's up, Tommy?
Hey, how you doing, Trey? Good to see you.
Now, let me ask you something. I saw it somewhere. I can't remember where I saw it, but apparently, was it Ken Miller? Is that his name? I think he had admitted that Tompkins was correct about the research she had did on the chromosome 2 fusion thing. I mean, there could be something about that. I don't know, but as far as I'm aware of, he was in an interview with some guy, and he said that he had to go through like a couple of email exchanges before, like, he got around to saying that he was right.
Oh yeah. He was shown to be wrong about something, and he admitted that Tompkins was right. But then afterwards, I guess he sort of was backpedaling, and he responded to somebody else's email and was trying to, I guess, like try to make it
Okay,
go right.
yeah,
Yeah, a lot of these people they're showing that second set of emails that were Ken Miller is backpedaling rather than showing the original emails between Ken Miller and and Tompkins, I believe.
Well, from what I heard, it's like the original emails was like published on the Blaze or something like that.
Oh yeah, I think what Tompkins did was he put the emails on the Blaze. That's what he did. Put some of the emails on the Blaze.
And so there was some originals, and then you saying that Kid Miller told a different story afterwards with some more emails to somebody else.
Well, I think that what Ken Miller was doing was he was trying to make a case for himself as to why he thinks he's still right. That's what he was basically trying to do.
Okay.
So I think that even though if he was if he acknowledged something from Tompkins, I think that he was still trying to say, well, even if this is the case or something like that, then you know what, here's what I'm trying to say, here's what I'm right about, you know.
What? Here's the thing. If they're talking about the chromosome 2 fusion thing, wouldn't any part of it, kind of make his entire analysis fall? Even if, one or two things were incorrect about it and Tompkins was correct, I mean, I don't see how he would even be able to say he was right. But, I mean, I could be just misunderstanding something.
Well, I haven't seen any material from anybody showing that Tompkins was wrong. I mean, I really haven't seen any material from anybody saying that Tompkins was wrong. I think that.
Yeah, I sincerely looked for some stuff, trying to like I looked for some papers that like some actual like research papers that like counter his findings, and I didn't find any, honestly.
Yeah, and I want to clarify something actually that was actually said in Steve's Hangout. I forgot this earlier in the Hangout. Apoptosis, when I'm saying about apoptosis will trigger cell death, and that's usually happens when you're screwing around with the telomeres. It's that those are not supposed to fuse, but what will that's not to say the same thing as what I'm talking about with the telomerase being messed up, and then you're getting tumorous cells or cancerous cells being produced. That's not the same thing as what I'm trying to say right there. The mechanisms that are inside of the cell, apoptosis, is supposed to stop these types of things from happening. So usually when you see something screwing up in the side of the cell, either the P57 gene or the P53 gene, I don't remember what it was, but these things like this, they're built there and they're put there to stop tumorous cells or cancerous cells to happen. If something were to malfunction to where the cells were not to self-destruct, what do you think ends up happening? The cell becomes cancerous and it begins to produce these types of cells. Now, some tumor cells, obviously, they're not cancerous cells, but other malfunctions might happen. There's a plethora of different disorders or malfunctions that can end up happening that are dangerous for the living organism if apoptosis or if these other mechanisms inside of the cell don't self-destruct and destroy the cell or stop it from being able to replicate. So apoptosis is there to cause cell death, but if apoptosis doesn't happen, the mechanisms or these telomere fusions or these telomeres touching or getting screwed up in some way, if they were to be able to get away with that, they would cause dangerous phenomena to happen inside of cells. Because I just wanted to bring that up because he mentioned that earlier in his Hangout, and I mean, of course, if they don't know what Robertsonian translocation are, I think they're going to have struggle. They're going to have trouble getting what happens with apoptosis and these mechanisms like telomerase and so on. So,
you asked a question, True, that I was asking the evolutionists the other night, which is because this is something that's spans across the whole scientific community and the creationists and the ID community. And so the question, I mean, this is not just between Tompkins and Miller. I mean, other people are free to chime in on this. And as far as Tompkins' specific claims that he made on video on Ian Juby's interview, for example, I haven't seen anybody in the scientific community, at least nobody of any stature, whether that be an Evo author or some sort of university professor or someone along that caliber or some peer-reviewed person, come out and actually negate or refute what Tompkins was saying. So you would think, evolutionists would really be chomping at the bits to destroy, humiliate Tompkins, who is a pretty big voice in the creationist camp, or ID camp. I'm not sure which one he is, but as far as I know, I haven't seen anybody actually go through and address all those claims. Like, for example, is that a functional gene indeed that this fusion took place within? Now, I think they said the other night that it was a pseudo gene, so I don't know. Maybe you can help me out with that. But from what I understood, it was functional, or is that false?
It is functional, and I believe if you knock out that part where it's dealing with the what is it? I forget what it's called. Non-coding RNAs. That's what it was? I don't remember specifically what it was, but if you knock that out, that's actually extremely dangerous for the cell. That's one of the most important types of mechanisms for the human body, for living organisms. So if you knock out that spot, it's actually dangerous. It's extremely important, and there's actually really important functions going on right there.
And you said something else that was interesting too, which is true, that it just highlights, this is they're going to grab onto this really, really tightly. And maybe that's why we haven't heard anything from the scientific community, because sometimes silence equates to making the problem go away. But they have so few actual hard evidences, and I mean hard evidences in quote, but they have so few evidences that they have traditionally pointed to that even remotely point to the idea of common ancestor between chimps and humans. I mean, it'd be nice looking at it from their behalf if they actually had some bones, that they could trace back to some, fork in the road back a long time ago that forked out one way to chimps and the other way to humans, but they don't have the actual fossils, which is common or ubiquitous between all the higher phyla. So they don't have that. They don't really have a legitimate mechanism to make it happen. I mean, they see that there's a genetic difference, but do these differences in DNA actually cause those morphological differences? So in other words, just because there's a difference in DNA doesn't mean there's actually a pathway to get from one to the other, morphologically. So I think that's a mistake they make a lot.
Well, I was actually talking with Antonio a little bit ago, I believe, before we went live, and Tompkins was talking about something that I never heard before, and it was that chimpanzees, they don't have 95% of the same DNA or 98% of the same DNA that we have. Mm-hmm. Overall, what they really have is about 70% of the same DNA that we have, and that's looking at the individual chromosomes, the percentage compared to each chromosome. Overall, 70% of they have 70% of the same DNA. Now, if you think about that, I mean, just a 2% to 5% difference would be what? 38 million nucleotides to 48 to 50 million nucleotides differences. Right. That's a lot right there already. But 70%, 30% remaining, that's a lot of differences. There's a lot of sequences and coding in there that are actually like really, really important. A lot of these people, they show like these pictures online. Remember Hogtie Champ? You just showed me a picture, but they show pictures of just comparing, chromosomes and from chimpanzees and humans, and they said, well, look at all this, the similarities here. They're almost identical, and you can only see like small sections inside of those patterns. Well, how many? I mean, yeah, I can see the picture there, but how much coding is involved in that just one sequence right there? What is that, like 60,000 sequences right there, that little section that you're leaving? It might look like a little speck on your little picture you're showing me, but how many sequences is involved right there? So,
and how much trial and error would that have had to have gone through to make a functional feature, you know, the differences between chimps and humans, they may not look like much. I mean, I think they do, but you know, an evolutionist looking at it through their glasses may not make it seem like, it may not seem like a lot of differences. But if you think about it, every feature in a human is different than a chimp. So in other words, if they deconstructed or did an autopsy on a chimp and a human, it would be clear, you know, that everything is basically different. So the point is, everything had to go through a evolutionary genetic sort of alteration. So anyway, to trial and error that, so that, you know, if you're just going to stick in random sequences or random genes in a pre-existing sequence, then the odds of getting something that's actually functional and beneficial is quite rare. But to do it that many times, I forgot how many you said, millions of times, is astronomically unlikely.
And I was just looking through a lot of research, and what I seen from you know, addressing Tompkins' stuff was a lot of poking fun at, a lot of mocking and this and that, but not really any detailed peer review refutations at all.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there are no peer-reviewed refutations for this. I mean, they're not out there, and they put words in my mouth and even in Tompkins' mouth, thinking that we're saying something else, like fusion events don't happen, or there haven't been telomere fusions to where there are telomere types of fusions to where they happen, or they don't really happen like they happen with what are they with humans, but whenever telomere fusions happen, they're dangerous, and the organism is extremely unhealthy, and it's all sorts of problems end up happening. So it's not a telomere fusion, but it's more so like where something is screwing up with the telomere when they're trying to do experiments on them, or when they're trying to mix them or see what happens. So those are the type of things that you see happen. But they're not like the telomere fusion that's being claimed, this end-to-end telomere fusion that's being claimed with humans. I mean, we don't see that anywhere at all, and that's what they have to actually provide evidence for. They have to show where this type of fusion event that they're claiming happened inside of the human body with chromosome 2. They've got to prove that can actually happen. And I mean, Fiona, she's just been doing a lot of backpedaling. I think she used that statement about the Robertsonian translocation before Steve started talking about it, and a Robertsonian translocation is not the same thing as what you're seeing inside of the chromosome 2 fusion site. Steve, I was watching his discussion with you, and I was in the comment section, you know, running my mouth, telling, you know, and Steve was trying to say that to you, Tommy, that, well, do you know what a Robertsonian translocation is? This is what we're seeing. We see that with the 44 chromosome man. What you're seeing with this Robertsonian translocation is, if it's a Robertsonian translocation, is a fusion between two centromeres. That's what you're seeing right there. It's not a fusion between two telomeres. That's what the point would be.
Ah, interesting.
So if he's talking about a Robertsonian translocation, Robertsonian translocations specifically happen and towards two centromeres that are within close proximity, and they fuse two chromosomes. I know I screwed up right there. Two chromosomes within close proximity that fuse by the centromeres.
So they're comparing apples to oranges, basically.
Yeah.
And I asked him that on that hangout, and of course, it's hard to get a straight answer out of any of them. But I asked him if there had been any other scientific cases or instances of this type of fusion event happening, or if science had run across that anywhere in nature, and I didn't get an answer. I wished like crazy that I could have gone back, because I've read through this before. I mean, I'm certainly not going to be an expert on it either way, but I mean, it's been a while since I've sort of been through this argument and through the latest or the more recent information on it. And so I was trying to steer it away from that in that argument, or in that debate, in that hangout, because I was kind of behind the eight ball, just simply because it wasn't really fresh on my mind. I hadn't really looked at it. Still isn't. I mean, anyway, so yeah, that's why I was asking him some questions, and I wasn't really getting any good answers. But that didn't surprise me that that they would compare apples to oranges like that.
Oh, I was hearing them. They were pretty much, they were lying to you basically.
No.
You told them that you don't know a lot about this to the point where you can talk about it in detail, right? And they were trying to BS you with Robertsonian translocation, hogtie, or not hogtie, but Dragnot comes in from the sidelines and starts asking stupid questions. And who's that one guy, the dude with the beard?
Oh yeah, Heavy Hauler.
Yeah, I mean, he was not even offering anything of any substance, just like he's the little cheerleader in the background. So, yeah, so they weren't offering anything of any substance when they were talking with you. I think the questions that you were asking, they should have been dealt with a little bit more honest and straightforward.
I want to screen share something for you guys and just tell me what you think of it. Like, this is, and like I said, I was talking to them last night. They were nice guys, and this is one of the things they showed me. What do you think of this?
What is that? The stained chromosomes?
Yeah. Yeah, they were explaining. Yeah, they were explaining the fusion of the stained chromosomes. Yeah.
Okay, so what are they trying to show?
It was kind of hard for me to take it all in, but basically, it was supposed to be like very, very damning evidence against creationist claims or something like that.
Well, I think what they're trying to say is that trying to point out like the similar rings that you would see on it, but it's
and there's this diagram right here. He was kind of walking me through this right here. Like, I still don't quite have it all put together yet, though. But
I don't understand what a picture necessarily proves one way or the other. I mean, you have this and you have that.
Yeah, well, I think they're trying to point out from what I'm gathering from what he's showing, I think they're trying to point out, well, there are two centromeres there.
Mm-hmm.
Something. I mean, I don't know what they're trying to talk about.
Well, that's what go ahead.
Similarities.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I get what you're trying to say, but with the rings that they were showing, if this is what they were trying to get at, the rings that they were showing, they got carried away with that at the beginning because you were seeing similar patterns. But again, right over there by that telomere fusion, that where it's supposed to be telomere fusion, it's not even two telomeres. It is not two telomeres. It's one telomere. It's one telomere right by an extremely, extremely important part, right where you see the non-coding region. You see the transcription factor binding region beginning, and that's really important for the control rates of RNA and DNA. So it's not two chromosomes fusing together. It's one chromosome, and the telomeric pairs, the telomeric sequences that are supposed to be there, they're almost non-existent.
I forgot. Let me read the bottom real quick here. Let me see. It said, indeed, a journal published by Answers in Genesis, Kim Ham's organization, there's a lengthy and wonky attempted rebuttal by a creationist geneticist named Jeffrey Tompkins. Tompkins naturally finds all kinds of supposed problems with the genetic evidence. Perhaps his biggest claim is that the alleged site on the human chromosome 2 where the fusion occurred, there's actually a functioning gene rather than remnants of fused telomeres. The alleged fusion site is not a degenerate fusion sequence, but is, and since creation has been a functional feature in an important gene, Tompkins writes at another creationist site, the Institute for Creation Research. But that's just wrong according to Miller. The fusion site is more than 1,300 bases away from the gene, he says, based on a review of major gene databanks. These increasingly desperate efforts to debunk the chromosome 2 story have failed before, and they failed this time too, Miller concludes. Once again, we can see that the story of human evolution is written not only in the language of bones and fossils, but in far more eloquent script of the human genome.
I think that's the issue. I could be wrong, but I think that's the issue that Tompkins wrote back and claimed that Kenneth Miller admitted that he was incorrect on. Do you know about that, True? Because I know he did go back and sort of admit that Tompkins was right about something, but I don't remember what it was.
Well, I haven't read the emails in a long, long time, like in like 4 years or so, something like that, 3 years maybe. So I'm not even going to try to get into that, because if I word it the wrong way, then the people in our community are going to jump all over me for it.
Have you watched the EGB? Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the fusion site, it is located inside of the gene, the DDX11L2, but it's I think that where it's located, like right around like where the beginning, so it's right, it is right there. That's where the fusion site is. It's somewhere around that area.
Yeah, so that would be a problem for them. So if that is indeed the case, then it seems to me that they would have to either deny it is there, or deny that the gene has function. So that's what really needs to be addressed. And there's other issues too that I put over here on the side. One of them seems to be that it basically says and maybe you covered this before, but ultimately it says that this is from evolutionnews.org, but it says if the fusion occurred within 6 million years, one of the papers asks, why are the arrays at the fusion site so degenerate? And it says if 2 chromosomes were fused end to end in humans, then a huge amount of alleged telomeric DNA is missing or garbled. So evidently there's other signatures about this that indicate that the story isn't exactly as neat.
That's what I've been saying this whole time. The telomeric sequences, all right. The 3,000, they were trying to say, well, no, only 1,500, 1,000 sequences are necessary. Okay, let's ignore the 3,000 sequences that are supposed to be there. The 3,000 telomeric sequences are 2,500, because you do see mostly around that amount with, in organisms. You're only seeing 30 to 40 sequences. So from 3,000 to 40, or 1,000 to 1,500 to 40 sequences, the point would be is that those telomeric sequences are pretty much non-existent. So I think that's what the point is. They try to say, well, they're just degenerate. No. The sequences are pretty much gone. They don't really even exist along the chromosome. So I mean, it's a ridiculous statement to make that those telomeric sequences, they're not there. It's not that they're degenerate. It's that they're simply not found along the chromosome. You're only finding about 40.
One thing I was wondering is, looking at it from their point of view, do they think that this was just a neutral, sort of accidental thing that conferred no benefit? And what I'm asking is, under the evolutionary scheme, things usually generally have to be selected. And if they're not selected, if they're degenerate or cause some sort of dysfunction, then they get, supposedly, according to the theory, selected out. So I don't know what their claim is on this fusion event, if it's just one of those magical, accidental things that happen by fluke happenstance that had no actual effect on fitness one way or the other, or if it actually has function and that's why it was selected, and also what the mechanism is for fusion and what it actually does, if anything.
Well, with this, I don't think they really have any mechanism for this telomeric fusion event. I mean, it's pretty much an unknown. There's a lot of articles out there trying to work around this type of problem, but they don't really have a mechanism for this type of problem. If they're talking about Robertsonian translocation or satellite DNA to satellite DNA fusions, or satellite DNA to even a telomere fusion, all right, yeah, we have numerous different examples of that with butterflies and so on. But with telomere fusion like this isn't seen, and yeah, they don't have any reason to even really say that it's a telomere fusion. I think that the reason why they're talking about it the way that they are, and they're so hostile and aggressive towards this, is because they understand that there has to be some sort of fusion there. There has to be some sort of fusion there because we are supposedly sharing a common ancestor with the great apes, and we only have 46 chromosomes. We should have about 48 chromosomes, and it's not known for any chromosomes to just disappear. You don't just you lose that much information. Over what is it, like a 3 million year period of time, 4 million year period of time, or something like that. So
they're going to hold on. They're going to hold on to this like with the death grip, basically. They don't have a choice.
Yeah, there's nothing that anybody can say to these people, because if evolution, if the evidence shows that we didn't diverge from a common ancestor, and we need to have a fusion somewhere, and we don't find that, we don't see that, well then that's a huge blow to the claimed evolution of man.
Yeah. And I don't know the other way if it's as damaging personally. I mean, theoretically, you throw God in the mix, anything can happen, granted, but you could theoretically have God creating apes and humans, each with 48 chromosomes, and then for whatever reason the human chromosome fused somewhere along the lineage. And that could happen even under a young Earth creationism scenario. Not that that has anything to do with it, but it doesn't necessarily seem like something that would be a game killer for the creationists like it would the evolutionists.
Yeah, so, even if we were to grant them, okay, well, fine, it's a fusion site. There's way too much against it for us to say that it's actually a fusion site. Way too much. But even if we were to grant, okay, it was a few. There's 2 chromosomes fused along the history of mankind. That wouldn't necessarily have any too much of an effect on the creationist point of view, because we're more so concerned with the information content within the chromosomes inside of the DNA. So that's where our concern would be, the production of these new sequences that that have this play.
Well, especially if it did confer some sort of a function, if it conferred some sort of a benefit, which granted, I guess evidently science doesn't know or hasn't investigated it fully to know if there's actually function to this or not. But if it's within a functional gene, who knows what it is or what it's doing. But anyway, I guess that was the main thing, is that the creationists aren't really, strangled by this like the evolutionists would just have to, like you say, come up with an explanation that would explain the chromosome differences. But what is interesting too is, if you go back further, I don't know what the chromosome number is on, say, mice or some sort of a rodent that the apes came from, supposedly. But I'm doubting it's probably 48. So I'm just wondering, how they're going to have a mechanism anyway for transforming chromosome numbers throughout the animal kingdom, because there's a vast array of different chromosome numbers. So they've got to account for that somehow.
Well, see, what's happening here is that as they're finding new data, they're running a lot of muck and saying, well, this is what we would expect, this is what we would see. It's such well evidence for evolution. And as they're doing it, it's actually not true. They were looking for satellite DNA fusion, or satellite DNA to telomere fusion at the start. They didn't find what they were expecting. They found one chromosome with sequences that appeared to be a second telomere, but we now know that it's actually not a second telomere. It's actually the starting point of an extremely important mechanism for life. So they're basically making it up as they go along. The reason why is because, like I said, this chromosome 2 fusion, the fusion of 2 chromosomes, is extremely important for an evolutionary model if they're going to say that mankind diverged from the apes and this is where we are now. So this is what's really happening. As new information is being founded, the evolution is saying, oh yeah, we knew that. That's exactly what we were expecting. But that's not what they were expecting at all. They're grabbing the information and they're just trying to interpret it in a way that's beneficial to the evolutionists. But they're not hearing about all these other problems with it. They don't publish these in the mainstream journals. They're not talking about these things, about the extreme loss of the telomeric sequences to the point where they don't exist, or this starting point of this section to where you have this transcription factor binding region. I mean, these things aren't really talked about amongst these evolutionist groups, because if you point out that these aren't actually 2 telomeres, it's 1 telomere and an important mechanism for the human body, then you can't present it as if it's actually 2 fused chromosomes, and that's a problem for evolution.
You know, the what you're describing as I just call it a natural selection. They select their data and they select their individuals, it seems like, and they discard all the data that doesn't jive with their theory. But that, you know, and you know as well as I do that this is pretty much rampant and ubiquitous throughout science, and so that's why it's hard for me to really put a lot of credence and trust into this whole establishment as a whole, because you've got this whole mindset that what you just described, that they take the data and the data, they somehow try to make it absorb into the theory. They don't actually let the data dictate, you know, where they should science should let they follow the evidence to where it leads, but they actually have determined what the they have their assumptions first, and then they make everything fit within their assumptions. And so it's frustrating looking at it from our perspective, and it's just there's no telling what sort of data doesn't actually get published. And so we're probably seriously in the dark about a whole ton of stuff, you know, that's actually true, that doesn't get promoted, doesn't get talked about.
That's exactly true. That's 100% true. What they do is they ignore whatever is inconvenient for the theory, and they grab the hold of whatever they think is convenient for the theory. So if they find some information or some sort of mechanism in the cell or some sort of sequences in the cell appear to be similar, they'll mention that. But they'll ignore all of the other problems that are far more pressing and far more important. And yeah, that's exactly what happens. I mean, here online, I mean, we know that there are thousands and thousands of articles referencing evolution, thousands of them referencing evolution, but none of the articles really that you're looking at, they actually support these notions of common descent, like we've been dealing with here with the supposed chromosome 2 fusion site. I've been getting all sort of articles being sent to me, but as I look through it, they're comparing similarities of chimps and humans, they're comparing the sequences and so on, and they're looking at homologies, and you know, that's basically what it comes down to. They're not dealing with the criticisms of a telomere fusion. They're not dealing with the criticisms of what will happen if a telomere fused with another telomere. They're not dealing with these missing 3,000 to 2,000 telomeric sequences. Some people will try to give me the DDX11, L1, and then all the other, like, well, not all the others, but like mention like a couple of others, and then say, oh well, look, here's the answer to what you're looking for. No, that's not what I'm looking for. You need to try to justify to me or prove to me that these degenerate sequences are actually what you're claiming they are, and they don't ever deal with it. I mean, like we go back to this little situation with the Robertsonian translocation. The Robertsonian translocation is not the same thing. It's not the same thing. So trying to pretend that it is the same thing as this sort of telomere fusion event, it's dishonest. And they're doing that. They're trying to dodge around certain points and mention off-topic remarks that might sound similar, because think about that for a second, because they know that the average person who's hearing these things, they don't really know about these topics. That's why I just say, everybody, do your own research, because if you do your own research, you're going to know that what I'm saying is right. There's a lot of puffing out of chests here online on YouTube, a lot of people getting a little carried away with their arrogance, but I think that overall, if you check out some of the things that I'm saying and you check out what they're saying, you're going to see that what I'm saying is correct.
Yeah. What you described is exactly what happened the other night, you know, with Steve pulling that, and I was unaware and ignorant basically of that. So it's you know, they prey basically on ignorance, and that's why Steve, for example, if you notice, he one of his favorite things to do is troll around looking for creationists who may or may probably are not as up on the issue or up on the topic of evolution as other people, and he loves to get them isolated. He really loves to get them on camera, and it's basically preying on ignorance, and it's not necessarily he likes to. I don't know. Maybe I don't want to say that, but it just seems like it's an unfair fight when you're up against someone who really, it's like with me with chemistry, I don't even know, so that's not my field at all. So for me to get in there with the field of evolutionists is like, you know, a rat being in with a den of snakes. So
well, here's the ridiculous part about it. He won't debate me. He won't talk to me over chemistry because he told me, well, he's not a chemist. He doesn't know a lot about this stuff, basically. So he won't come into a room and talk to me over chemistry because of that issue. But he'll go try to look for somebody else like you who will say that you don't know a lot about this issue on chemistry because in his eyes, he thinks that you're an easy target. That's the fear. But I think that if anybody's seen like some of the other discussions that Tommy's had with Steve, when they're talking about other topics in science and biology, Tommy is like putting them all in check. Like really, I mean, he's patiently just putting all of them in check, and you can see them all getting frustrated with him. He's got his papers set aside, and he's dealing with what they're saying. So I think that they need to slow down with this. Well, if Tommy doesn't know chemistry or Tommy doesn't know the situation with genetics, because we don't all know every topic. I mean, I don't know some things about quantum mechanics or geology. I mean, or even on some things about the phylogeny. Most of my study's been in biochemistry, molecular biology, and chemistry, right? So, of course, I'm not going to know a lot about those other topics, but that doesn't mean that we don't therefore know about a topic. We're not able to understand what people are saying. So this is really the direction that he's going. He's trying to find people's weak points, and then he wants to talk to them about their weak points because he's not confident enough to talk to them on a topic about things to where where their strengths are actually at. And I think that really shows with Steve. Like Steve, he does that a lot, and it seems like I'm getting a lot of different people sending me emails telling me, hey, will you talk to Steve? He keeps on trying to talk to me about this, but I'm telling him I don't know a lot about this topic. I don't think Tommy's really sending me any emails over this, but I've had like several different people these last couple of weeks, and that's telling me he's deliberately trying to look for targets that are weaker on certain areas because he's avoiding people who are stronger in certain areas. So, yeah, that tells me a lot right there.
Yeah, he's an evangelist. You know, they will deny being evangelists, but they are very every bit as evangelical as Christians are, you know, on Google Plus and YouTube. So they just have a different sort of religion that they want to push. But yeah, I have been how do I put it, the target of quite a few attacks in the last couple of days. So it's fun to be on the hot seat, I guess. So, but yeah, I made a video to drag. I posted it this morning, so it's fairly entertaining. So that might have got their feathers ruffled some. I don't know.
Yeah, I started watching some of that. I went over to Drag's channel and I checked out what he was saying, and Drag was just being ridiculous. I mean, at one point he was saying that you were being defensive or mad because he was saying that you didn't understand something about a certain topic. Wait a minute, you're the one who's telling them, okay, I don't really know enough about this topic to talk about it on this level. So if you're the one telling them that, why are you the one that's getting mad about not knowing anything? I think that what you're getting mad about or frustrated about is Drag not coming over here on the sidelines with some sort of point that's off topic just because he wants to play 21 questions, you know. Do you know what this means? Do you know what that means?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's they're trying, because they can't actually answer the direct question or the direct challenge. They go to something that's more into their wheelhouse, which is off topic, and you know they dig down. They reduce the argument to something smaller, like within the cells, which, like I say, doesn't really have anything to do with what I'm talking about. It's just a way to avoid the discussion or the question or the challenge. And there were several instances of that the other night in the Hangout, and one of them was about the nylon bug. And I just, you know, Scientist Sam has made the claim that the science has been settled that it's a frameshift mutation that's responsible for the nylon bug's ability to digest nylon, or the bacteria's ability to digest nylon. And I showed him a paper that said something otherwise. That was actually a plasmid, some sort of a horizontal movement of pre-existing information. And they wanted nothing. They didn't want to really even address that. They wanted to ask me what plasmids did. and get into all the the biology on that level. But that really bypasses the whole point of me proving Sam wrong, and my paper flatly contradicts what Sam said, that the science is settled on that particular event. So they just have a way of, it's a diversionary tactic that they have, and at the same time they can at least appear to be more superior, and they like that. They like to look and seem superior.
Well, yeah. Well, anybody can ask like some sort of trivia questions. If I were in a room with Dragnock, I can more than definitely try to sharpshoot him on certain topics, and he wouldn't know it because I've talked to him in the past, and I already know that can be done. But the point would be is that I would have no reason to do it. I mean, Dragnock knows that for the most part I've been respectful to him when I've talked to him, but there's no reason for him to start asking you questions about that and start saying something like that. I mean, I can understand, all right, if you're talking with somebody and they're just being really obnoxious, they're trying to condescend to you, and they're acting like you don't know anything about the topic. You should, step up and say, all right, if you're saying I don't know about this, what is this? What is that? So just to put them in place a little bit. But you weren't doing anything like that, and you told him beforehand that you didn't really know a lot about these topics. The fact that he was doing that with you was just him trying to flaunt his own ego. I'm more than willing to bet that if I put him aside and started questioning him about some of these things, that he probably wouldn't know the details of it. But I would be the guilty one for sharpshooting him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what would happen. I would be the guilty one for trying to sharpshoot him. But you're being humble about it and saying, you know what, about this topic, I don't really know a lot about it. Oh, Tommy doesn't know a lot about it? Let me try to make myself look good by bringing up a bunch of trivia questions about a topic that he just said he doesn't know about so that I can make myself look good. I mean, this is their attitude. It's like all they're really doing is they're being arrogant, and it's really awkward. That's what it is. It's just they look like...
Well, see, here's the thing. Here's what they hate. Because, see, if you think about this, the onus is on them because they are the ones supposedly representing science. So the onus is not on me. I don't have to answer jack. So when I give them challenges to present me something, like we're, hang on a while back, I was asking for a mutation that created part of the flagellum, or anything in the cell, anything, a molecular mode, or any mutation. And so, because the theory would require that mutations would essentially have created everything in selection, mutation and selection. So there would have to be a biological mechanism for the flagellum to come into existence. So I asked for a peer-reviewed paper to show me one. Well, the onus is on them. When they are unable to do so, changing the topic to how flagellum works, or how this, bringing up telomeres, or bringing up this, that, the other, is an off-topic diversion. And I'm just sitting back. I don't claim to be a scientist. I don't claim to be a professional. I don't even. It's not even necessary, because, like I said, the onus is on them. They're the ones that have the burden of proof, not me.
Yeah, at one point I remember when they were somebody screen shared links, some articles, and I'm sitting over there in the comment section. Okay, you're saying that this is evidence. Click on one of the links so you can read it. Like, they were just screen sharing a huge list of links that were supposedly supposed to be evidence for them, and I'm like, all right, click the link so we can look through it, see if it's actually backing up what you're saying. And I know they were looking at the comments because of the they're always looking at the comments when I respond. They want me to go in and talk with them, but even the people in the comment section, they noticed that I was there, and I was repeatedly telling them, look, click the link, click the link, click the link, click the link, and they did not click the link that they were showing that was supposedly evidence, at least in the section that I was looking at, because I think they know that that those articles, they didn't, they're not going to support that, or they didn't know. They just probably Googled, the first thing that they thought it was gonna back them up, and when they saw the list of links, you say, oh, look at all these links.
Yep, exactly. You know what? That is something, and I know you're familiar with this, but that is something that has really irritated me for the many years that I've been kind of dealing with these people. Is it's a regular thing that they do, that they throw links at you. A lot of times they'll throw you a dozen links or so, or half a dozen links, and they haven't read through them. And almost every time that you look through one or some of them, they have nothing to do with that what you actually asked for. They may have the word associated, or the dealing with the topic, but they don't actually answer what you've challenged them to do. So I get accused of not reading papers, and sometimes that's true, especially if they're going to give me multiple papers. I'm not going to go, that's why I always ask. The way I word it is, show me your best example, show me your best paper. Don't give me a handful. I want your best one, and they hate that. So that's a good one to remember when you're dealing with them. But like Artist is really bad about that. He'll present papers that are just, they have nothing to do with what you're asking for.
Oh, he's really bad about that. He's also really bad about just constantly giving you just abstracts of papers and not the whole thing. I mean, like, man, if you know that we can't see the whole thing unless we like pay for it out of pocket, then why the heck do you keep pointing us to these abstracts all the time? It just gets old.
Yeah, he knows. It's not only that; it's that he doesn't even read the articles that he gives you. I'll ask him all the time. Okay, have you read this article? Oh, it's been a long time. Oh, there's always some sort of excuse, and I say, okay, what is this article about? And he'll read the title. That's how he responds to me. And after we read the article, it doesn't have anything to do with what he's saying. So yeah, MMRs is horrible at that. All it is citation bluffing. They think if they throw a lot of articles at you that have something to do with it in the title or in the abstract, then therefore it's gonna somehow like blow your mind and 100% confirm what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
He did the same kind of thing, in my few debates with him, and when we was talking about abortion. He did that. I seen him doing it with you, gentlemen. I've seen he did it with me in the abortion issue. He just kind of throws all these just links from here everywhere, and just they don't connect at all. He just makes connections that don't exist. He just says a bunch of ad hoc things that makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, he's bad about it, real bad. So I just learned a long time ago not to let them waste my time. So it's not that I have an aversion to reading papers. If I come across one that's important, then of course I'll read it. If we're having a big discussion about something, I'd be glad to read it. But most of the time, a large percentage of the papers they present are are off topic.
Yeah, sometimes, like right now, I'm going through 3 papers right now, but I don't just try to just read the papers. I try to study the papers and make sure I got all the language understood. I get what everything's being talked about. So I'll sometimes spend maybe like 3 weeks on one paper if it's a really complex paper to get a really good idea of what's being talked about. With I mean, the title is sorry, it's just the title
That's very responsible to do. Like spend a lot of time on one paper instead of a little bit of time on 20 papers.
Well, it's easier that way for them. It's easier to just go to Google Scholar, type in, anything that has to do with the topic, and then the first thing you find, give it to us. Oh, look, we got an article written on this. Okay, but is the article that's written about it, does it have to do with the topic here? Because it could be talking about something else. It might not have anything to do with evolution, It might be talking about something completely different.
Oh yeah, it's like you said, like Googling the first thing they find. I come across a lot of the same crap when I be talking about abortion. It's the same type of thing. You'll ask them about. What would be an example? Oh yeah, you'll ask them about like some pro. Hold on. I'm thinking it was one example. I just got lost at the top of my head. I just had it in my head and I lost it that quickly. But anyway, the point is, I deal with a lot of that same stuff you deal with. You would ask them about. Oh yeah, I was thinking about when I would ask them about where does it say that the unborn is a parasite, because some of them will actually say that the unborn is a parasite. And then they would quote all these pseudoscience articles that say absolutely nothing of the sort. Most of the time, they would do something like point out like medical papers that would have like something about a parasite in it. But when you actually look at the actual material, they're probably talking about something like, I don't know, a sickness or something. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, they do these in a number of different subjects, and it's not just the evolution intelligent design subject. It's crazy.
Exactly, man. Um, I was actually gonna talk about that a little bit too. I was thinking about doing a hangout on that. This bastardizing of science, because that's really what it comes down to, just to try to squeeze their views in. That, trying to make an unborn child equivalent to a parasite, it's just disgusting. I think that Artist was trying to do that, and Steve was trying to do that before by comparing the, what was it, the zygotes, the human zygotes, to, what is it, like bacteria, single cell organisms or something like that, because it's not fully formed.
I
Is that
will say, Steve was a bit more honest than Morris about it. He did say, there's certain things that seem parasitic about pregnancy, but he definitely did not call the unborn a parasite. Like, artists jumped to that original conclusion that the unborn was a parasite, and Steve actually corrected him on that. And
that's
then
good.
he backed off when Steve corrected him.
Oh, that's good, because I know that the last discussion, I'm not sure. I think it was in your hangout, Antonio, but he said something about uh, he said that the zygotes was basically not uh, is not considered human, because it's not a single a human is a multicellular organism. So he was like trying to like move it into a direction to where, okay, since the zygote isn't fully formed yet, therefore it's like equivalent to some sort of single cell organism. Do you
Oh,
remember talking
oh
about?
yeah, there was talking. Yeah, they was talking about like the star of it, and I was talking to Tommy Hall about this in one of the hangouts I had the other day, and my answer to that is, they're just confusing the lack of they're confusing like the physical beginning of it with the lack of actualized nature. Like, for example, if you look at a baby, right? A baby cannot walk, yet a baby is a bipedal organism still, because if birds and humans, use two legs to walk, even though the baby hasn't actualized the nature of the bipedal functioning, it's still a bipedal organism even when it's a baby. It just hasn't actualized the use of the function of the legs yet, and it will at later on, but that's still a bipedal organism, even though the baby hasn't actualized its nature of its walking functions yet. And in the same way, even if you look at the beginning part of a human being, it just hasn't actualized the multicellular stage yet, but it's starting. It's on
Exactly.
its way to
In the
actualizing.
process, yeah.
Yes, they're confusing the they're, they're ignoring the nature of it, and they're just doing in the beginning point.
You know what you call that?
What
You
you
call
call
that
it?
you call that a fallacy of composition. That's what you call it, because it's true in part, therefore the whole is the same as that part. That's basically what it is.
Oh, oh yeah, yeah. They like to throw that out a whole lot. Like, they like to try to strawman you by saying, "Oh well, you bringing up human DNA, so you must be saying, like individual cells, like a skin cells, are just as valuable as a human being," and that's just not it. Because like, you could take a whole brick house, and you got a brick house, but then you have one brick, and that's one brick is not a brick house anymore than one human cell is a human being. You take the whole human being in part. You don't just take one cell and kind of just attack a straw man with the composition fallacy you were talking about.
Yeah, I gotta end the hangout, guys. 'Cause I think I've been here a lot longer than I should have been. It's already 6:05. But yeah, I mean that does really come down to what they're trying to do. It comes down to that fallacy of composition, I mean, you can't just say that because it's true in part, therefore the whole is therefore now, same
Oh,
as that part.
oh
So when,
yeah.
yeah,
Just really quick, like you said, like it's like they're using a number of different fallacies to attack a number of different scientific disciplines. Man, they're attacking human embryology. They're using it in the evolution and intelligent design debate. It's just just
yeah,
distorting science. Yeah.
it's all what it all is it's a bunch of genetic fallacies, ad populum fallacies, like I mentioned earlier. This fallacy of composition. It's just so many fallacies that they're trying to do to get away from information that disagrees with them, or trying to make information fit where it doesn't actually belong. This is what they're doing, like all the way across the board. Excuse me, all the way across the board. With, for example, these different organizations, these intelligent design organizations, or these creation organizations, they will ignore the work that they've done in those organizations and the findings that they have had just because of the organizations that they're involved in. Like Jeffrey Tompkins, he's published an article that has to do with this. He's done the work, he's done the research, he's investigated this. And instead of going after the work or criticizing the work that was done, they criticize the organization and throw away the work altogether. Why? Because of where it originates, therefore somehow means that it's invalid or can't be true, which is nothing more than a genetic fallacy.
Oh, damn you, religious crackpots.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it comes down to, though. Just they have an emotional distaste towards groups or organizations that disagree with their organizations. They're not part of the team. They're not wearing the red team jersey, right? So that's really what it all comes down to. But guys, I gotta end this hangout. Give you guys the last word. You guys can go ahead and give the final.
Well, as always, shoot. Thanks for the hangout, man. It's always a good time, man.
Yeah. Hey, I said something to you the other night or the other day, True, that I just wanted to echo here that I appreciate what you do on here, and you are extremely effective. And so, I know sometimes it's hard to. I mean, it's easy to let these guys, when they're trying to dogpile, it's easy to kind of let it get to you. But anyway, I'm just gonna let you know. I appreciate what you're doing, and keep up the good work. You're doing an awesome job, and love you. So, good stuff.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that a lot, man. And everybody who's listening, Tommy's probably one of the strongest brothers in our little community as well. If he really watches discussions, I think that you guys would get a lot of good insight. Don't listen to all the trash talk that's being said. Thanks, Tommy. I appreciate that, man.
Alrighty, very good.
All right, God bless, guys.
See you, Antonio.